Hello, welcome. My name's CavemanAston, and today it's a bit of a special one. I want to start off by wishing my dad a very happy birthday. Reason being is today I'm making a little something extra to go alongside my dad's main birthday present. So I'm planning to make a cue holder for like pool, snooker. I'm going to be making a quite small, I'd say it's small, relatively speaking, out of some brass. So I'm going to have a little round section at the bottom, a short little stub that comes up, and then like a little V shape that the cue holder, so you can imagine that's a very large cue stick, is going to sort of sit like this, and you can hit the ball like that. So hopefully it shouldn't be too complicated, but we're going to be making it out of brass. Thought it'll be quite nice once it's all polished up, and if my dad doesn't want to use it or just wants to use it as an ornament, it will kind of go with the steampunk feeling that they've got going on for their decorations. So let's crack on with doing some drawings to get an idea of size and shape, and we'll get on with the making. So the first bit I'm drawing is just the size and outline of the circular bar that I've got, and just as kind of reference. None of the rest of it's actually to scale, so there's not much point in actually looking at it. The first design, along with all of them, are going to share a pretty similar base kind of idea of just a flat base, possibly with a slight chamfer on the edges just to make it a little bit more comfortable to hold. And there's a few variations through different designs of a threaded rod that comes up and out of it. And then obviously in the first design you've got a threaded rod that comes up. The top section, I'm not sure how I was going to make it, but we'll have like a flat V, which will then extend down with an internal thread that sits onto the bottom one. And if I make them both long enough, it will allow me a bit of height adjustment so that you can take sort of shots over the top of cue balls that are in the way, or down low just to get a dead inline shot. The second idea is to use a bit of the circular brass and then just notch a V section out of half of it, which will give it a nice a rounded edge, which would be quite pretty to look at. And then the same, it will just be threaded up internally. The next design uses a kind of Y piece that would extend down into an internal thread. I eventually realised that having the internal threaded section would mean there'll be slightly more mass on the base, so I think all the designs will probably end up with an internal threaded section at the bottom. And then finally I realised I've got a bit of 20mm square bar that I could also use as part of this project that's also brass. And I thought, oh, that would give me a few potential options. So what I could do is I could have just a stub section on the base, and then everything could be interchangeable. So I've got a base with a thread, I can then have a square section with a thread, and I could have multiple square sections to give me the different heights, and then I could have a couple of different top sections which would give me different shapes to use on the top as well. So I thought it'd be completely interchangeable, so people may prefer one to the other, say a circular versus a V, and then it leaves it up to whoever's using it. Okay guys, we are about halfway. I've managed to make the base bit, so it's circular already. Taken the edge down here, tapped through the middle, and on the underside I've slightly recessed this. I'll see if I can get some close-ups in a minute. I've taken this bit of square bar, turned it down and put a thread on the top. So that now threads into here like so. And that'll give it a bit of height adjustment between sort of that height and, I don't know, sort of that height, give you a little bit of range. I'll then make a few stub bits to extend it. But the next bit is I want to try and put either a V groove or a circular slot in, but I also want to mill down the whole side of this just so it's not quite as bulky. Because I've not really thought it through, I'm just having fun making stuff. I've got to the point where I need to clamp this in and take the sides down to size, but I can't hold it because, whoops, and I can't hold it because of the threaded section. I don't want to crush it. So because it's M8, I've taken a M8 standoff nut bolt thing, and I've just cut a slot down there, taken a file down and put a tap through the middle just to clear out any of the burrs. This will allow me to spin it onto here, he says confidently. And what the slot means is that when it's in the vise, it will compress down and hold it tight without ruining the threads. So I'm going to line it up, get it all square, clamp it down nice and tight, cut the edges down to size. And then what I'm probably going to do, to get a circular shape, I'm just going to use an end cutter that's probably, in fact this one, 16mm, just to give it a nice easy curved radius in the bottom. So it'll be a bit thinner, big circular bit, and I can just round anything over left with the file. And that should be it, apart from the standoffs, which I'm undecided about making now. But yeah, wish me luck. Oh, and a side note, those of you that have been watching me working on the lathe and are horrified by some of the things I'm doing, I apologise. Please let me know what I should have been doing in the comments. I know I was using some of the possibly wrong tools to try and get that inside radius, sort of angle, and the cutting off tool I was having loads of trouble with to part off the work, and I was sort of slowly moving it in, nice slow speed as it's supposed to do according to all of the other YouTube videos, because everybody's an expert. It was just doing nothing, and then eventually I noticed it was actually starting to walk to the side. Had another look, and it turns out that I just got the tool height ever so slightly too high, so as I'm pushing it in, it's just kind of lifting up and not cutting. So I dropped the tool height down, so as it's spinning round, the cutting edge is just underneath it, so it kind of rides up, cuts really smoothly. So I'm glad I worked that out in the end. I'll pay more attention in the future. Anyway, back to the video. Okay, if I decided to put that bit of clip in, the bit of brass was shaking and rattling loads inside that half nut clamp that I made, so I decided I'm just going to stick it in here. It's not going to end up being perfectly square because I've not gone around and machined all the edges, but it doesn't need to be that accurate, so I'm just going to cut off about 5mm off both sides. It should leave me with about 10mm centre section. So I'll just mill off this edge, flip it over, mill the same on the other side, and hopefully all should be good with the world. Right, so I have clearly not planned this whatsoever. So I've drilled the hole through and I've attempted to countersink it. My countersink's old and a little bit broken, so it didn't do a particularly great job. So I'm just going to file the hole smooth afterwards. But what I was thinking is that obviously for a pool cue it would be better to be able to just drop it in whenever, rather than having a round hole that you have to effectively thread it through. So I'm going to mill a slot in from the top, get rid of the top section, which does mean that the hole was potentially pointless. But it gave me a bit of experience drilling into brass, which was a little bit scary. Turns out I had the speed far too low. Should have been running it at about 1000 RPM on a 13mm bit according to the online calculator I used, rather than a few hundred, which is why it suddenly gripped and started slipping in the chuck. My bad on that. So I'm going to slot this, possibly trim off just a fraction off the top, just so the arms aren't quite as tall. You'll see it when kind of like the slot in there. And yeah, we'll go from there. Hopefully that'll pretty much be it done, other than polishing everything up. So onwards and upwards. Okay, so it's all finished. So hopefully that will be clear enough to see. So then you've obviously got the height adjustment, spin it down. It's pretty sturdy. It's fine enough for a pool cue. So what I've done is, after you guys last saw it, I've taken it outside, taken the angle grinder round just a sanding disc, bearing in mind not a full-on grinding one, just smoothed it all over with 320 grit, taking it across with some sandpaper, got some just next to me on a bit of flat wood, and just rubbed it back and forth gently, going up the grits up to about 2000 grit. Whether or not that did a whole lot, I don't know, but then just taking some T-cut around it for car body work stuff, but it seems to have done the trick, and it's I don't know how well it will show up on camera, but it's pretty shiny, pretty reflective. So hopefully that's all done. Thank you very much for joining me on this one. It's been a learning experience on a few things, especially like the different speeds I should be using. If you are interested, I also now have an Instagram which I occasionally update. I'm trying to do a bit better job. It's CavemanAston. If you have enjoyed the video, please do hit the like button. Any comments, suggestions, anything really, because I could do all the tips I could get hold of, please leave some comments down below. Feel free to share it. But yeah, thank you very much for watching. I'll see you in the next episode.